Enzorecto, kalaban ang katiwalian at kasinungalingan, kakampi sa katotohanan at kabutihan.
Let's talk about the Trilateral Summit, Justice Carpio. What is your read of the Trilateral Summit over last week in terms of the outcomes? The U.S. Congress is pushing for a $2.5 billion defense aid. There's going to be a Luzon Economic Corridor. Biden publicly said that the Mutual Defense Treaty will apply. What is your read of the Trilateral Summit, Justice Carpio?
Well, first, on the economic front, remember China said that they will provide the Philippines 22 billion in loans and investments. Nothing happened. Less than 5% materialized. Now, Japan and the US are saying we will provide 100 billion, 5 times. And I think Japan will deliver because Japan is our biggest aid donor, and they can deliver. And the US will not want to be lumped together with China, pledging so much and actually not delivering. And it's easy for them to deliver this promise because the US semiconductor companies are leaving China. So they can just tell them to locate in the Philippines. I mean, they're in the process of relocating. So the State Department could just encourage them to relocate in the Philippines. So it's very easy for them to meet that figure, no? That 100 billion figure over 5 years. So this is something big because it generates a lot of employment. The very labor-intensive production lines, no? So it's a good thing, and I think we expect we will get, aside from that 100 billion, there's a bipartisan bill to provide 2.5 billion in military assistance, and that's also a big amount, no? So. And I think that is not part of the aid package to Ukraine and Israel that is now bogged down. That is a separate bill. So I think this will go, it's a bipartisan bill, so it will go quickly and it will be passed quickly.
Interesting. I mean, Justice Carpio, I think this is where we slightly diverged back in the day because I think everyone was worried about debt trap. I said, don't worry about debt trap, worry about pledge trap, like empty pledges and nothing comes in. So I turned out as more correct and pessimistic, right? Because sabi ko, debt trap means my investment. Ito, wala talaga. Na Duterte tayo nung panahon ni Digong. But Justice Carpio, speaking of this the defense aid, what do you think we should focus on in terms of this defense aid? Kasi the economic corridor makes sense to me. Semiconductors, critical infrastructure development, port facilities, green technology, and climate resilience. So everything is there. It ticks all the boxes. So let's just hope things will trickle in over the next coming months and years. Pero dito sa defense aid, do you think it's important that US finally we get the multi-role vessels, the F-15X or F-15, some of the more modern warships? Because I'll be honest, Justice, maybe you don't agree with me, but my frustration is I look around the world. I don't know. Israel has got what, hundreds of billions of aid from US throughout the decades. Egypt got close to what, $100 billion aid throughout the decades. Pakistan, Jordan. I mean, I can go on and on about countries that are not even US allies, not even in war like Ukraine, and yet it looks like they have got more solid defense aid from the US. I mean, Jordanian Air Force, Pakistani Air Force. They have, I think, F-16 fighters. Yes, we can blame the Philippines. Marami tayong kakulangan. But my sense is we were also taken for granted for quite some time, and perhaps now it's time for a catch-up. I mean, what is your read on this, Justice Carpio? I mean, I don't mind if you don't agree with my read, but this is my read on this issue. The measure taken for granted before.
Well, the facts are there. They got more aid, military aid than us. And I think the reason for that is that these were the flash points. These were the burning issues, no, in Afghanistan. So they had to appease Pakistan and Egypt. They had to compete with Russia in providing military aid to Egypt to moderate Egypt's behavior against Israel. And of course, Israel is another completely different thing, no? So they did not see any urgent need to provide us with military aid until now. I think now they realize that they have to stand up to China already, and that's why they've decided to put to give focus to the Philippines. And I think that's why they're already giving us more aid, no? Because this is now the flashpoint, the new flashpoint in world geopolitics, no? And I think that's why we're getting this attention already, because there's really trouble now in the South China Sea.
So your argument is because America's threat perceptions are shifting towards China and Asia, and not to mention the real threat of military confrontation in the South China Sea and West Philippine Sea, it's just natural for the US to pay more attention to us. But are there specific things you think that we should see as part of this foreign military financing? I think $500 million annually is the target of this new package. What do you want to see in that 500 million aside from M16 fighters? I'm sorry, M16 guns and all of that. We really need something more advanced, right? Missile systems, multi-role fighters, modern warships.
Well, I would like to see HIMARS, because the HIMARS that can reach the Chinese artificial islands in the Spratlys, because right now those artificial islands hold us hostage. They can destroy our air bases in Palawan because our air bases are fixed, but we have no capacity to destroy them without the HIMARS. Well, probably when we get the BrahMos missiles, we can. But with the HIMARS, very accurate, it will really hit the within a few meters, so that will really destroy the runway in Mischief Reef. So we should get the HIMARS. And they gave HIMARS to Malaysia. They sold HIMARS to Malaysia.
Right.
There's no reason why we couldn't get HIMARS. So for
That's
me,
a very good point.
what we need are missiles that hit the Chinese in their islands in the Spratlys. Because if we have those missiles, we now control the Chinese. Right now, they control us because they can destroy us anytime, and we have no defense. We cannot fight back. But if we can destroy them anytime, and the HIMARS are mobile, they cannot destroy the HIMARS, then we control them.
That's a very good point. And I think pasok din yung HIMARS dun sa, these missile defense systems dun sa comprehensive archipelagic defense strategy na ina-adopt din natin. No? It looks like they match properly on that front. Justice Carpio, what about Japan? What do you want to see in terms of Japan? Do you think a VFA with Japan will be a step too far, assuming, internally the Japanese will be even in position to pull that off because of, the pacifist party, Komeito within LDP coalition? Let's just assume internally they don't have a problem. Do you think rotational access for Japanese self-defense forces is reasonable, or perhaps a bit, a bridge too far?
Well, I think the Japanese public will accept that already. It's something that's being discussed, and I think the Japanese government thinks that there will be no strong opposition from the Japanese public, considering what's happening now. So I think we will have a Visiting Forces Agreement. It can be named differently. Right now we have with Australia. We should have one with Japan, and then with UK and France. I think eventually we will have something like that with them.
Fantastic Five. A Fantastic Five situation. The French, the British, the Japanese, Australian, the Americans. Obviously, mababash na naman tayo ng mga leftist friends natin. Sabi, ito na naman, say Darian at Carpio, binenta naman yung bayan natin sa mga dayuhan, mga AFAM. Galit lang daw tayo sa China.
But France, UK, Australia, you cannot accuse them of territorial ambition or they have any territorial designs on the Philippines or maritime designs. There's only
In the
one
21st
country
century,
that
yeah. In the 21st
there is
century.
only one, yeah, in the present century. But there is only in the present century, there's only one country that wants our territory and maritime zones. That's China.
But of course, sasabihin nila, China is doing it because binubuli sila ng American empire. Dahil they're surrounded by American bases. Diba ganun yung
Yeah,
line?
that's what that's what they, the Chinese tell me. But all these Europeans, we suffered at their hands for a century, the century of humiliation. That's why we are exacting our revenge. And I said, why are you exacting your revenge on us? We never occupied a square inch of your territory. When the alliance of Europeans and Japanese and Russians occupied Beijing in that Boxer Rebellion, we were fighting the Americans. We were under Western colonizers for more than 300 years. We were as oppressed, more oppressed than you. So why do you take your revenge on us? We had nothing. We never occupied a single square inch of your territory. So the narrative that because they suffered in the hands of the Europeans, they should get the South China Sea. It doesn't compute. They should get the Atlantic Ocean.
I mean, the Russian do the same, right? Dahil, inattack sila ni Hitler nung World War II or, Frederick the Great or the Swedes, now they have to colonize Ukraine again. I mean, that kind of nonsense revanchist arguments, diba?
That's correct.
I mean, you can say, the Mongolians probably have more to say na dahil inapi sila ng Soviet Union, they have to reclaim their... I mean, you can go down this road of this ridiculous... I always say, if you had 100 years of humiliation, we had 500 years of humiliation, right? Including the humiliation you're visiting on us nowadays. Mukhang napiko ng mga Chinese when we use the term bully, no? Napansin mo? Like, immediately they keep on saying, we're not a bully, we're not... I think they're very scared of being shown as an imperialist power in their own right.
Yeah, but they are. I mean, they're seeking hegemony in the South China Sea, and they're the only one that's still expanding. They're the only one who's still expanding their territory, along with Russia. There are only two countries now that are expanding their territory, annexing the territory of other countries, Russia and China.
Baka may gentleman's agreement din yung dalawa na yan on the you never know, baka Putin and Xi has a gentleman agreement, but going back,
I think you know what, I think they had to get the territories of other countries, because if they can't get the territories of their other countries, they will get their own each other's territory.
yeah, Siberia is a big problem,
Siberia.
right?
They will fight over Siberia, so they
Yeah, you're right. Actually, diba nung nag-release ng 10-dash line ang China, isa sa mga bansa na napikon na hindi natin minention is Russia. Because dun sa 10-dash line, kasama yung Russian territory.
they're changing the names of Vladivostok into Chinese names.
I mean, this is crazy, no? This is crazy. Of course, I find it ironic because today's China claims to be a Han nation, and yet they're claiming what was conquered by the Manchus, right? Which are not considered as Han. But that's a long conversation. Now, going back to this, what do you think we should look at getting from the other important partners? Or, acquiring. I don't want to use the word getting, baka mendicant ang labas. Like Japan, for instance. What do you think Japan can offer? I mean, the French are offering submarines. The British obviously...
The Japanese have always been giving us or donating or selling us through loans, Coast Guard vessels, because before they were not allowed to sell warships, but they've started to sell already radars to us or give us radars. So I think we can get Coast Guard vessels and radar telecommunications from Japan.
And do you think looking at even getting advanced fighter jets from Japan or those kinds of things? Because I think they just approved recently export of next generation fighters in Japan. So do you think those should be also some of our targets down the road? Na hindi lang tayo umasa sa Amerika? Yeah.
Well, they're developing sixth generation now together with UK
The Italians and UK, yeah,
and Italy.
yeah.
They will retire their F2s, no, their copy of the F-16. So maybe they will give us some of those.
So there's so much here to look at. Now, Justice Carpio, moving forward, what do you think we should see sa Ayungin Shoal in particular? Because this looks like quite a dangerous flashpoint with huge implications. I mean, we just saw over the weekend there could almost a huge war in the Middle East. First of all, are you worried that the U.S. may be overstretched with conflicts in the Middle East, conflicts in Ukraine? I mean, the Middle East situation is quite worrying, as what we saw just over the weekend. Or do you think you're confident enough that the United States could still be a reliable partner in this part of the world? But also, what should we do? I mean, should we ask Americans to join us in resupply missions? Should Americans directly contribute, or should they just be over the horizon with drones? Should they provide some engineering technology to us so that we can fortify it better on our own? What are we looking at here, Justice Carpio, in terms of the next steps on Ayungin Shoal?
In Ayungin Shoal, we should convert our presence there from military to non-military, because the tribunal said we cannot assume jurisdiction over your petition that we order China to stop their dangerous maneuvers, because these are military activities and that's outside the jurisdiction. So we should convert our presence to non-military. We put up a lighthouse operated by the Coast Guard, that's civilian. We put up a research center by the UP Institute of Marine Sciences, and we put up there a substation of Coast Guard. They can park their two small vessels, so any armed attack on those two Coast Guard vessels would trigger the operation of the MDT, Middle Defense Treaty. Of course, China will stop us from sending the construction materials, but then we can go to the tribunal now, and this time we will say this is now a civilian, non-military activity, because we're putting up this Marine Research Center, this lighthouse, and we can win another award. And the more awards we win, the more support we will get from the rest of the world. But of course, right now, our Navy is confident that even if it's difficult, we can still supply Sierra Madre, continue the supply, and even if we are water cannon, the sympathy of the world will be with us if we have those video footage. No, so actually China is losing here the PR war. I don't know what kind of steps the Navy will do. Maybe they will send a more hardened supply ship that can withstand these water cannons. But I think eventually we have to shift to a non-military presence, because no matter what we say, even if we keep on repairing Sierra Madre, it will collapse one day, because you can repair it only up to a certain extent.
So lighthouse or something like that is the way forward.
A lighthouse, so that it will become a civilian activity.
Do we have the technology for that, engineering technology to make a lighthouse over? This is not even a rock. I mean, this is a low tide elevation. So should we do a reclamation there? Wouldn't that be?
We can install a lighthouse. During the time of President FDR, there was a plan to put up lighthouses in all of these places, and these are modular, solar powered. But then the foreign secretary at the time opposed it, because he said China will be angry. And that foreign secretary was planning to run as Secretary General of the UN, and of course,
China that happened. Right. I just have a slight issue with your proposal. I completely see where you're coming from, Justice, but isn't the thing I say is the US is very clear that they will come to our rescue kung na-attack yung troops natin, aircrafts and vessels. So clearly this is our military. So kung tinanggal mo yung military natin sa Ayungin Shoal, wouldn't that limit America's MDT commitments or allow them to have more equivocation?
No, because the US said any armed attack on a Philippine public vessel, and they put this, including the Coast Guard.
So public vessel, not necessarily
That's why I said
military.
let's put the Coast Guard substation there.
Good point. Sorry, I didn't hear the Coast Guard part. Yes. Coast Guard,
put a Coast Guard vessel there, park it, and that will be, they'll have to attack that Coast Guard vessel.
And in terms of resupply, the supply part, do you think the Americans should be over the horizon with some drones and corvettes, something like
Well,
that?
I
Just in
think
case.
we have to consider that if we really cannot resupply our troops, as long as we can resupply our troops, even if we are water cannon, we should continue because we're actually getting the sympathy of the world.
Yeah, so in short, that
Bunyog, bunyog, halikan na kasama ka. Bunyog, kapag buklod ay may pag-asa. Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao, isa ang pananaw. Sa bagong Pilipinas ang bunyog isisigaw. Bunyog, bunyog, bunyog.